Coming live from New York, USA is our guest tonight. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Vinnie Potestivo, Emmy award-winning media advisor, who helps and clients leverage their media exposure, find fame, and make impact. He's the editor-in-chief of I Have a Podcast and is responsible for discovering and amplifying the voice of independent podcasters worldwide. Welcome to the show, Vinnie.
Well, KJ, you are. If this is what is up, KJ, how are you? It's great to see you. I love the energy. I'm in. I'm sucked in. You got me, and I can't wait to share what I experienced at MTV in the late '90s and early 2000s with reality TV. I can't wait to share what I learned from Ashton Kutcher and Snoop Dogg and Jessica said. What they all have in common, by the way, is we're all human. And I was lucky to learn from amazing storytellers 25 years ago when they had to go through TV. And I'm helping business owners do the same thing now, not so that they don't make the same creative decision, the same creative mistakes financially, especially, that I've seen go down. And there's so many awesome opportunities for independent creators, independent business owners to own intellectual property, IP. Like this podcast is IP, you own it. 25 years ago, you used to have to sell a TV show to get it out in the universe. And I am so excited to be here and help people literally get discovered, increase visibility, increase that share factor, and do what I can to help you stand out.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Vinnie. And as you said, energy cannot be, created just by itself. There has to be a catalyst, somebody who nudges that energy into somebody else. As they say, it takes two to tango. So let's do some great tango here in terms of a good conversation. And so we'll be talking about how to get discovered and be more discoverable. You are a master of this particular thing. You tell a lot of podcasters, a lot of creators, a lot of people who are trying to make a name for themselves. So first thing, Vinnie, just to understand, why is it important to be discovered in today's time?
Oh, yeah. Well, so discoverability ultimately is about getting the message out and getting it converted. So discoverability matters because that's how most of us are going to sustain our message, whether it be finance or energy or momentum, but it's about sustainability. And I think that's where getting the message out, owning the message, but without being discovered. Is there growth? If the flower doesn't discover the sunlight every day, is there growth? If we don't discover new facts about ourselves, our neighbors, is there growth? And I think that this is the opportunity that I've seen over 25 years that helps people continue to get discovered over and over and over again, this rediscovery. And I've seen it in celebrities. It's easy to see it in celebrity talent because they're in front of us, right? So we've seen celebrities rebrand. We've seen them go through, decades of definition and how the media likes to describe them and who they actually are and how they prove who they are through their actions. And I think that business owners have the same opportunity now. In fact, I realized that it's okay. Look, I'm guilty of this too, but I realized we actually weren't really good at getting discovered. We actually weren't doing. I'm saying we, let me make this very singular. I wasn't doing the one thing that I know it takes to get discovered. Most people think discoverability, if you increase visibility, you increase discoverability, right? Most people think if I can be everywhere, if I can be on a movie everywhere, and then on TV and have a film, and if I can be omnipresent, omni-channel, multi-sync, this idea of needing more visibility for more discoverability. And I'm here to take a deep breath. Laugh at that joke. Actually, I'm going to let that sit in. I'm going to laugh. I'm going to sit in that I just laughed at that thought that I only need to increase my visibility for discoverability, when in fact, the thing I need to do is increase my shareability. That's the coolest part. If I can increase what you share after I've been visible, I can increase my discoverability. So if discoverability equals visibility to the power of sharing, that is how powerful sharing is. And that's something we talk about on social media. right? We talk about maybe a KPI on social might be for growth. We might be looking at likes or follower count, but truly the saves even are sometimes, you know, a KPI and highly regarded. Shares, something that allows someone to claim this information as their own, make it their own, take it their own, and then share it as their own. There are things I realized that feed into the ego of those discoverers that we can set them up for. We can give them better pieces to share. We can make them more successful in retelling our strategy, reframing our story, sharing who we are or what our products and services actually do for the person. Not what you get as a result of this product, but what you get as a result of using this product in the context of your greater goals. And I think there's so much power in understanding where you fall in someone's journey, because this is how we begin to realize how we can support them at different stages of that game. And when you can do that, for me, for example, in the late 90s, I kind of figured out how to help artists who had momentum, who were already in the public light, who had no control over their own narratives, their own stories, other than public perception, right? They can come out with songs and a music video, but that was highly collaborative. They can go on an appearance. They can go on a news show once every 6 months because they had to come out with a product that created that news cycle. And even then, they were limited to 6 or 7 minutes on a late night talk show. And usually, if you're a female, you get pretty dumb questions back in the 90s and early 2000s. You know, they wasted our time trying to create entertainment when what we were trying to do is create momentum and impact. And here's the thing I realized: discoverability, the visibility without action of sharing is entertainment, right? I don't want you to share. If I want you to watch TV, I'm not going to do anything that's going to make you leave the screen. In fact, I'm going to say, we'll be right back. Come right back after these messages, right? Because here I am claiming, I'm telling you that you watching these commercials is more important than getting the impact of the series, because this content is being served on a media platform contingent on advertising. And I think that's what I love most about podcasting, is that we have so much power, so much control. There's this weird number. Some people think 4 million. There was this weird number floating in 2022, 4 million podcasts. People were like nervous about that. By the way, the same year, I couldn't even imagine how many poems, how many songs, how many buildings, how many movies. And here we're going to say 4 million. Does 4 million sound a lot to you? I don't know. In my life, I'll tell you, 4 million doesn't sound like too much. It sounds like just the beginning of something that's about to have a pretty major impact. And I want to help you guys. I want to help you all be successful in getting your story out there, because this is how people can share you, how they can share your experiences, your services, your merch, your content, your contacts, right? Networking is sharing contacts. That's the most valuable share. So these are some things that I know people can do to tighten up their discoverability factor. So they don't need to increase visibility. Most of us don't want our neighbors or competitors or colleagues to even see the effort we're doing. Here's where there would have to be in the public eye, the public persona of media, to get more out of the content and energy that we're creating.
Right, Vinny. Now, let's look at it from a bit of say 2 decades earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
You were a network executive at MTV Networks.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, it was a great place to be, for anybody to be discovered, especially new artists, their songs, and somebody who was there meant that he or she has arrived. Those people, those were the platforms, or in newspapers, if there was a story, or whatever those platforms were. But there were people who still would be able to find you. Today, after so many years, we have huge number of technology and platforms available. Do you think the factor about discoverability, the problem of getting discovered was or difficult earlier on or today? How would you look at it from all your years of experience looking at today?
Well, I feel like 25 years ago, I was a casting director by trade, and I was hired to go out and find people and bring them into the industry. Casting is the only person in the industry hired to do that. Producers don't do that. Agents don't do that. Managers might do that. Managers might work with new talent and help groom them. But most people turn to agencies and think that like if they get an agent, they're going to start getting bookings. But really, what happens is when you start getting bookings, then you get an agent who really just helps you negotiate your deals and leverages that agency's other intellectual property and clients. They package you. That's how they make their money in packaging, by the way, not in growing your career. I was lucky to be at MTV. In 1998, when I was in college, a senior in college, I knew that I wanted to be surrounded by talent. I took out an ad in something called Backstage, which is now it's backstage.com, where anyone who does not have representation can see non-union castings. And I said, look, I'm a casting director. I'm looking to build my files. I was lucky. I got about 700, just under 700 submissions in a week. I got in trouble because you're not allowed to start a business at school. So I felt like cool because Mark Zuckerberg did the same thing with Facebook. So I feel a little aligned there. But then I turned, and similar to Mark, I turned to technology. I turned to Microsoft Excel, the macros in Excel, and I started creating a database of talent. And that database is what helped me organize the conversation around talent on a network level. So at MTV, I was brought in to help sort of manage and coordinate large casting processes. So whether they were hundreds or thousands of audience members or thousands of, we had a show called Wanna Be a VJ. People could be a presenter on MTV and introduce a music video. So we toured the country looking for new hosts for that. And prior to that, I worked at Fox News on a show called Hannity and Combs, where I toured the country, again, managing the audience. And it was my job to speak to the audience members and find out what questions they had for our two hosts, Sean Hannity and Sean Combs. And I got to that was my first experience and foray into it. So television was always an interesting sort of a platform for me. It wasn't necessarily what I thought I would be working in, but it was emerging in the 90s. I mean, MTV in the 80s was born, but in the 90s, I see CNN get launched. I see Fox News get launched. I see MTV2 get launched. I see, portfolios starting to expand. I see that this media world on television is growing. I'm looking at the dial on my TV and it only says 20. So in my mind, I think, TV can only go up to 20, MTV was usually channel 20. It was usually the last one back in the day. And in 2007, when I left MTV, AOL Music was playing music videos. YouTube was playing music videos. There was technology that were out there. It wasn't even so much that the media landscape grew, but so much more grew outside of media. And all of those people, all of those storytellers, producers, early sort of production heads and executives at MTV, who were there in the late 90s and early 2000s, they are currently the head of podcasts at Spotify and Apple and Netflix. I mean, they're this class of creator talent that has mastered storytelling, has literally infiltrated, so to speak, this private sector of media. MTV was a little rebellious by nature. Fox News, rebellious by nature. CNN, rebellious by nature. And there's something rebellious about just being for the people, maybe? Is that what it is? Is that what makes it so rebellious? Is we put people before ads? And this economy, that matters. In this economy, we are the most powerful link, more so than our businesses. Our businesses will be sold and bought and change names, but we, the people, are the ones who are doing the business. If you're looking to get discovered, you want to pitch to MTV or you want to pitch to AOL. You don't pitch to a platform. You pitch to a person. Actually, that's why I love LinkedIn. I really like LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn a lot because I like working quickly and judiciously with people that I know can move content quickly. And in this game, that matters. And LinkedIn is a great place to meet with like-minded people and then move quickly on that. I even had this awesome masterclass about influencer marketing recently on LinkedIn and the affable.ai, which is an all-in-one marketing platform for influencer marketing, recommended that we did it on LinkedIn, which I think is awesome, that you have giant platforms that know the power of Instagram and TikTok. We know that those are where advertisers, like that's the power in that social economy, right? Like LinkedIn is almost the back door, the side door, to the economy, to the creator economy business. But hey, however you can get in, however you can stand out, by the way, that's been a big part of my strategy is how can I, even my podcast, it's called I Have a Podcast.
Yes.
And it's on all the podcast platforms as you're supposed to be. But where I stand out is on the smaller platforms, on Good Pods, on Podmatch. These are places that I get excited about because, well, actually, to be honest, these are places I get excited about because they get excited about me. That energy, the return on energy is there. And sometimes, every action has a reaction, but sometimes when you drop a pebble in a pond, the reaction isn't quite what you're looking for. So I found a way to go to smaller ponds and get the reactions that I wanted. And to me, that really helped out. But to think big, I had to start small. And that's something I would recommend to all anyone in production for a podcast or starting a social media channel, or if you're launching a business or a product. I would think big, I would start small. I would not niche down my product. I would niche down the story and the audience that I'm selling the product to. So for example, if I have a comb, I might, I don't know where I'm going with this, but there might be a demographic that prefers to sing. There's a nostalgia. There's like an 80s nostalgia where I could just sing to the microphone and I got big hair and I'm sort of picturing like babies inside Baby's Club or something like that movie. There's where I can talk about, this is the most powerful brush. Imagine what you can do with this brush. And I can put it in that context, niche down to the imagination of someone who's creative versus, do you only have 5 minutes to get ready for work? Do you need do straight lines matter? I can really get into the nitty gritty of what your pain points are. Like, I want to speak your language. I want to speak your secret language. And you do that by listening. And I got to do that through podcasting. And now I want to listen because I've been talking a lot. AJ.
No, perfectly all right. It is worth listening to. You are the guest, you are the star, you are the master for today.
Oh, you're sweet.
And the masterclass is about the master and not about
well, let's make it about the class. Let's make it about the class and make sure the class gets what they want to. So anyone has questions.
It is perfectly going in the right direction. And the pupils are also listening to it and will be watching to it to understand and grasp every bit of insight that you share. So you see, your journey is from MTV to VPE.TV. Am I right?
Yeah, I started my company in college, and I had that for 2 years, and then I went to MTV to help scale MTV to a global company. When I was at MTV, there was 2 channels. When I left, there was over 50.
Right, and today you have got VPE.TV. So that's yes. So that's a great journey for you. And today it's not just about you. You have made your journey now, from now onwards, to others, where you help them to be discovered. But to get that is where your insights come into the picture, is that, as they say, you got to be at the right place at the right time. And that is where your insights help. How do you tell them, what do you tell them, people who connect with you, who are your clients, what is the right place and what is the right time for them to be discovered? Where do you help them get discovered? Tell us about your company. Tell us about the work you do. Tell us about the clients who you deal with. Tell us about the people who can approach you so that you can show them the path forward, help them being discovered, and give them the chance of their lives to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, well, there's 25 years ago, the answer would be different. 25 years ago, there was a guessing game that had to happen, and you didn't know where the right place or the right time is because it wasn't your choice to decide when that opportunity came to you. But I think the difference between now and then is that you sort of, this is like Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. You've always had the power, and now you have more so the power. And here's what I mean by Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. How do you get discovered? What's the right place? Wherever you are, wherever you were standing firmly, knowing that this is where you're meant to be, that you believe that this is truly where you're meant to be. For example, I have ADHD, and I have a couple of clients and there's a couple of things happening in my head at any given time. So I know that I'm like a hyperactive thinker, but not when I'm podcasting. When I'm podcasting, AJ, this is our time. This is like where I can just forget about everything else that is coming in the future and focus on this conversation that will affect the alchemy of what I'm creating immediately. By the way, all my clients work. This conversation will instantly affect the alchemy of that content and hopefully a larger conversation and create and ignite a larger conversation than even possible between one person. And I think that the power in knowing how to ignite that, the power in being intentional, responsible for that comes into play. And I think that right here, right now, for me, this is where I'm meant to be discovered. If there's anything that I think I can do in the universe right now to get discovered, to be more discoverable, for more, I honestly think that this is it. And I can't think of anything else. There's not a late night talk show, a celebrity, a politician, a miracle that I can think of that is where I'm supposed to be, other than this moment right here. I believe in it so much that, all right, so here's the share stuff. So now I'm asking for visibility. So now I want to make sure people know that at vpe.tv, I have a free creator hub where I give away 100 awards worthy of winning. So I believe that people don't understand how to win awards. I believe that they don't know you have to apply for them, or when to apply, or how to apply, or how to stand out, or how to go from nomination to winning, and even how to leverage that win thereafter. More importantly, what does winning an award actually mean, by the way? It's big. Winning an award could change your career, by the way. I've been in TV for 25 years. I've been in TV. Last year, I won my first Emmy. She's right here. I put her right there above my shoulder. I love her. I won her with Jeff Hoffman, Brandon T. Adams, Kevin Harrington, and Samantha Rosine. It's about a woman coming out of rehab. It's called Red Flags, and it literally is a documentary about a woman coming out of rehab and the journey that we as people around that person might be able to support them, and what are those red flags that sort of. So I couldn't be prouder of the project. But I didn't win my first Emmy until last year. And now when I try to go on stage, or when I try to meet people, that Emmy award sure does come up quite a lot. I see, and I couldn't be prouder, because I didn't win it for some weird project that I worked on although I would have loved to have won, I was a kid when I worked on the Osbournes, and to win. And Osbournes did win an Emmy. It won, actually, Osbournes won the second Emmy ever for reality television ever. Osbournes won, but only producers win the actual Emmy, not like talent producers or talent coordinators, whatever I was on that. I was young on that project. So, but I had to go out and look for that. So by the way, vpe.tv for awards worthy of winning. Also, people ask, how do you get paid as a creator? And there's a couple of ways. Some of it is networking and relationships. And actually, let's just say 80-20. Let's say 80% of it is networking and relationships, and it's who you know, and blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about so all of that aside, I don't know who you know. I'm not even going to go in that direction. Let's talk about that 20%. That 20% to me is where something called creator marketing platforms come into play. They're all-in-one resources for brands looking for creators like us that have maybe a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand, definitely south of 15,000 followers, right? Like I'm in that boutique, tiny little, cluster of influencers that are less than 15, and versus the influencers that truly have power on these platforms for the masses. My accounts, I think the strength of my platforms more so is the quality of eyeballs on it and who they are. Most of them are TV buyers, TV creators, podcast buyers, filmmakers, and a lot of industry. So I use my platform to get other people's projects in front of them and help them grow, because that's literally podcast to broadcast. So helping you get paid for these creator marketing platforms, that's something that I'm passionate about. I've got about 50 creator marketing platforms that I'm on. I make between $500 to $5,000 a month, depending on, especially now in November, do I have anything around me? Actually, I just got something for $500, and people would say, Vinny, first of all, $500 is a lot of money. $500 pays for a lot of my support, and if I can take a couple of photos, and it's the product is a shaving product. I don't know if I should say that the name because there's like a NDA or whatever, but I'll be putting it on my socials by the time this comes out. Well, this is live, so you're all part of it, by the way. I don't know where I'm going with it, but the cool thing is that I have these opportunities that come in, and I take them and I turn them into podcast opportunities. I take these opportunities as creative challenges, and I think they want me to post on social. To get paid, I have to take their product and talk about it in social, but how do I bring it back to my podcast? So I'm not going to, wrap my head in a towel and just only talk about shaving, when truly the only reason I'm on social media is to empower people to be stronger podcasters, better podcasters, more empathetic podcasters. And podcasters are hosts and guests. I want to point that out. You could be a full, I almost identify more as being a podcast guest than a host myself, because I only shoot my podcast 6 days a year. I shoot 8, 10 to 15-minute episodes a day with 2 different people. And I do that 6 times a year. And that's my podcast strategy. And then 2 days a week, I dedicate to outbound content as a guest for 2 reasons. One, it's more fun. No offense to all my friends, but I'm very in my head when I'm doing my podcast, and I still get nervous and all the beginning jitters. And people say, you'll get over it. And I think to myself, no, it's so cool to be nervous. It's so cool to count my single digit TikTok followers to a couple of hundred. I'm not even in 1,000 yet. I love having a small audience where I can literally watch every single person come in and feel like I know them and not feel overwhelmed with the amount of exposure I now have. Trust that energy that I'm surrounding myself so I can lean into it and I can create. For me, that's just been a much better approach than looking at any piece of the performance analytics of my content. It's weird to say this, but there's always a call to action. There's always a purpose behind a post that I'm doing, but very rarely is it direct. Very rarely is it linear. And I don't use social media necessarily to convert or transact. I'm just using it right now to grow and to connect audiences. And when you connect audiences, I think that's community when you connect audiences. Yeah.
Right, Vinny. Now, in terms of discoverability, let's say you help in personal branding. Then does it? Am I right? Is it about personal branding?
So some of it is. Some of discover. Okay, so it's so many different ways. So here's one thing. So branding is a big part, right? Branding, like the dotting the I's, crossing the T's. What's the color of my font? What does the font look like? Yeah, there's a creative process to that, and I appreciate that. I'm not a designer. I've always worked with designers on every project, TV show, film, book, whatever it is I've worked with. I know how. I have a vision, and I know there's a point where I know that my I know that my vision stops where I can't see what it is, and that's where I get excited because I'm like, I have no expectations because I know that I can't see it. So this is the best thing I have, and I love working with creators who are able to work on a shared vision without needing direct construction. What I help people do is stand out. So, for example, if you have a podcast, are you converting it into a blog? Because if you're converting it into a blog, if your podcast is converting it into if you have a blog on your website, then there's a couple of things I would tell you to do. I would have you go to publishercenter.google.com, and I would have you become an official verified news source on Google. Because if you're putting out 5 blogs per month that are podcast related, that are info heavy, that Google's going to find that information extremely valuable. So the first thing I would have you do is turn that into a blog. The reason I have you turn into a blog, reason number 1 is shares. First and foremost, shares. I'm now sharing my blog article URL on all social media, as opposed to maybe needing to create little clips that live as social media and don't push to the same platform. I'm building authority on that website by sharing that information. And if I put my guests' URLs in the description, and then those guests also have this featured on their websites, you have link reciprocity, you have link back situation where there's two pages pointing to each other. Google loves that. And I love helping people be successful in Google, because Google is where we find people. And there's so much to be found that Google doesn't quite understand yet. Google doesn't know the information about you that you think it does. For example, imdb.com. This is a good one. If you are a podcaster, if you have a bakery, if you are a lawyer, if you are B2B, B2C, ABCDEFG, whatever, if you are any of that stuff, right? And you have a podcast and it's aired, IMDb allows you to upload that intellectual property to IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, which is owned by Amazon. And it allows you to upload that IP. You can't watch the shows on Internet Movie Database, but you get credit for those. So that's where we go to see who was the producer of E.T., what was the director's name, what was that actress's name. This is big data point for us. Recently new creators, creatives, influencers, social business people on social, whatever you want to call us, that now have an output of creativity. This is an amazing opportunity in the current creator economy to get your name on a platform that matters to creatives. And that's IMDb. IMDb, creatives don't, it's a weird thing, but creatives don't necessarily get rehired because they're the best in the industry. They get hired because they're the most visible, or the person understands how that person is to work with, but it's often not because of them being the best. It's because of them being the best fit for the team. Here on IMDb, we have an opportunity to stand out, and it's free. It's free. And not only do you get credit, executive producer and host credit, but you get to give credit to your designers, to your editors, to your copywriters, to your team that touches this. These are data points that now get sent to IMDb, that IMDb shares with Google, and that will now show up. So now I'm able to get discovered. My podcast is able to get discovered because the editors that I'm giving credit to are driving traffic to my site on IMDb. The guests that I've had on my platform, on my IMDb, are now coming to to my site. Also, when you're Google News verified, I realized then I should put my podcast on Google News verified. I also just recently submitted my website to Bing PubHub, because I have a sinking suspicion. Here's my goal. Y'all want to know my goal. You want to get in on something that I'm trying right now. On LinkedIn, you ever see on LinkedIn in the news feed, it says your friend was mentioned in the news, right? I want to figure out a way to get in that system so my podcasts trigger that alert as a news platform, so that I don't have to post every single day or week to talk about my podcast, because LinkedIn will see that action as a newsworthy action and will start sharing it. So that is my goal. It's a big secret I'm sharing with y'all, but it all starts with RSS, the power of RSS. And once by the way, we talk about the power of creating the blog for a podcast. Once I have a blog RSS, that means that AJ, if you have a website and you would like to embed my blog RSS into your website, now I can take my featured podcasters that I do. So I do something called featured podcasters every single day. I'm all about finding new talent and celebrating new talent. So I'm always looking for new talent. And now I have platforms that are sharing my column called Featured Podcaster, which means I'm really, truly helping people grow much larger than just the press that we're able to generate. But we've got platforms that are waiting to pull it and amplify that. And on top of that, there's something called aggregation. So here's a quick two things I'm publishing. In podcasting, when you publish your article, that's where you create content, right? You publish it to a directory. You distribute it, I should actually say, to a directory. The directory is where you play the content. So publishing, create content, distribution, play content, amplification on social media, where we amplify our content, promote content, right? We're not really consuming content in long form on social, except for YouTube, but it's really mostly about promoting. So publishing is to create content, distribution is to play content, amplification to promote content. And then here's the fourth bucket that I want to throw into the mix, the one that I think most people forget about: aggregation, right? Culling and curation of content. So the fact that I want to go to a website, an aggregator called Q.co. An aggregator is basically AI, or it doesn't have to be AI. It could just be a great old algorithm that sorts through blogs. And I say, I want a blog about podcast marketing. When I sit down to read a blog about podcast marketing, the aggregator is going to give me 10 to pick from. When you're discovered, when people are looking for you, they are more prone to share you. If I'm trying to get discovered on Instagram and gosh, imagine trying to disrupt someone's day so much so that they say, oh, this is amazing. I've never seen this before. I have to share it. It's almost impossible to think of that scenario. But if I can get your blog into the aggregator, and this is a great trick, by the way, vpe.tv/QUUU, 3 U's. So vpe.tv/QUUU will get you into the back end of that aggregator where you can put in your blogs. And I'm getting between 3,000 to 6,000 shares, social shares on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Quora, like Facebook, the text heavy platforms that can share blogs and social posts. So you said earlier, like, how do I work on someone's brand? Those are some unique ways, that I might take a look at it. If I wanted to tell you that, like, the first step for me is I probably take a step back and I take a 360 approach to the 3 sectors of media. Public being like news, TV, radio, like traditional sort of media, what we know. Social media, which is centralized and decentralized now, but majority centralized platforms. And then private content, which is like our newsletters and our podcast. And I find ways for you to maximize your presence in each of those buckets and cross-laterally. I think that's really important. You'll see Jimmy Fallon, you'll see late night shows that have social media segments built into them. And then the next day, those social media segments are killing it on YouTube. And I mean, even SNL has, shorts, and those shorts do really well on Hulu and YouTube, and they build them into the process, right? They're not repurposing content. They're pre-purposing it. They know there's a purpose. They're expecting that purpose. They're creating it, and they're putting it into the equity of the show, as opposed to trying to create something afterwards and force fit it for the sake of manipulating ads or growth. No, we know that we need this piece. We know we want it real and raw, as true to form as possible. So we create it while we're creating core content. That idea of pre-purposing content really helps. That idea of being mindful of how am I going to promote this on social helps. What that looks like is I have a short list of 5 meme accounts that I know I can reach out to that are pop culture, that I can give a 15-second soundbite from a celebrity to, and they'll run it. So I have relationships with people that see me, not because I pitched myself as a story. I never pitched a story to these people. I pitched myself as the source. And that's the biggest distinction I have to say in getting your content in public media or even in social media right now. Is pitching yourself as the source and not the story. It's not about what I have now. It's about what I've had for 20 years, what I have right now, and what I'm about to do for the next 10. But right now, this is what's on the table, right? And if you can verify me as a source, all of this can be yours. I'll open it all up to you. If you support me and you see me as a verified source, then I will open this up to you as a publisher. And that's the type of relationship that I look to have with independent creators and publicly owned platforms that have executives in those positions, because I know the power in being able to give them content that they're not shooting themselves, and to make it have and to shoot it in a way that truly feels genuine to that platform, which is pre-purposement, as opposed to repurposing it and trying to find a way, in the back door.
Wonderful, Vinny. In fact, I was just listening to it and writing it all down. All the points, even the Q, U, 3 U's. I've written
Trees.
it all down, and this is, I'll tell you, this is some big repository of insights, information that anybody, I have not heard anybody talk about it in such depth, such detail, and this is something a lot of people can use it, especially
Oh yeah.
podcasters.
Yeah.
Vinay. So this is wonderful. This is great. This is great stuff to be
Oh,
used, and
AJ, you're the best.
it is as I said, it's like a treasure.
I'm passionate about it. And by the way, everything I've talked about is documented. There's nothing that I'm talking about that I am not prepared to give you for free, anyone for free, the tactics to put these strategies to use. I just ask that you be mindful that there are traditionally marginalized voices in all communities, and that we use these tools for the betterment of good and for the betterment of humanity. I actually ask people to acknowledge that before they have access to what I call the Creator Hub. And the power in people, the power that we as podcasters have, that no two businesses can have, is us. And actually, I got to be a part. By the way, Podmatch just came out with a book called Guest Master. I just got my copy. And if you're a business owner, if you're thinking of having a podcast, if you think you might want to be a guest, on a podcast, Podmatch has been an amazing. This you want to know what's changed my my career? Podmatch. I treat Podmatch like MTV. I literally I told them to. I said that it's like I'm surrounded by creative people. I only want to work with the people in here because I trust them. I know them. I am one of them. And there's like about 13,000 people in this community right now. If you've ever been to a big university, that number is not too scary. So again, I believe in the power of people and the connections that we can make.
Wonderful, Vinny. Even I'm a great fan of Podmatch, and a lot of my whatever I am doing goes to Podmatch, and I sincerely am very thankful to Alex and team for coming up with such a great idea and putting all of us together under one umbrella, which is helping us.
And they just keep coming out with more and more products. Have you heard of Pod Lottery? Pod Lottery. This is amazing.
Yes.
This is when someone like Alex, when you're the visionary like Alex, who comes into the podcast platform and into the podcast industry, and the first thing he does is set up tools. Like, this is great. These are tools that are meant to connect and publish and create content that help us with the hardest part, by the way, scheduling and meeting each other. And it's a brilliant platform, and also Pod Lottery. So Pod Lottery, if you're looking for integrity-based, like if you were looking for reviews for your podcast based on integrity, based on podcasters who will listen to your podcast and give it a proper review, that Pod Lottery is an amazing place. That's vpe.tv/pod, POD lottery, LOTTERY. And I just do vpe.tv/all these things because it's easier for me to remember the platform. So can I give you a couple of quick links that I know that aren't out there? Here's one, vpe.tv/Apple promo.
Okay,
this
just
is a good
one second.
vpe.tv/Apple promo. This is a good one.
Okay.
So this link will take you to where Apple Podcasts asked you to fill out a form if you're looking to be featured in the featured podcast of that week. So they ask for you to submit no less than 3 to 4 weeks from the week that you want to be featured. But it's there it is. That's the link. That's the link that publicists use. That's the link that Apple gives to any network. That's the secret link, or access, I should say, to that secret link that's out there. And if you're looking for a Stitcher, also has one, by the way, vpe.tv/Stitcher promo is also what I created that link. That's out there. So if you're just looking for ways to get out, I like Good Pods. Are you on Good Pods, AJ?
I am not.
Good Pods. So goodpods.com.
But I guess recently I just connected with them on Twitter, I guess.
Oh yeah, I love Good Pods. Goodpods.com is a social media platform meets a podcast player, which means that if I listen to a podcast on Good Pods, that the podcast host can see that I listen to it and can engage with me if they want. This is cool because now we're able to connect with our audience in a very transparent way. But here's the best part about it is that when you go to goodpods.com, if you go to my podcast, for example, I have a podcast. I send people to Good Pods at first. I don't even send them to Apple Podcasts. I send them to Good Pods because I want them to see all of the comments and conversations that I've had about episodes. Not just reviews. It pulls all of my reviews also, but all the active conversation that I'm having around this content too. I feel like that social proof helps people take the leap quicker to listening to my podcast. And it's a smaller community, but it's in that smaller community that I'm the number one podcast in careers and the number one podcast in TV and film. And that wouldn't have happened in Apple Podcasts. And I use that number one data point in my sponsorship decks when I'm talking to potential clients and people looking to sponsor my masterclasses. So that's how I'm monetizing, by being in a smaller pool. To think big, I literally went to a smaller pool so I can stand out.
Wonderful, wonderful. This additional information is like cherry on the cake.
Yes.
It's lots of insights actually, Vinnie, and it's turning out to be great discussion today. Great insights from a master like you. So now my last question to you, Vinnie, is just to understand for podcasters. One of the biggest things for them is the monetization. I have my own views on how many people try to look at monetization, and I think very differently that people want to monetize. But that's something for another day, for different forums where people are interested to understand. Because I've always watched all these things from not as a podcaster or anything, but purely from a business point of view, or purely from a journalist point of view, where you use all your antennas to actually try and decipher whether this is going to work, this is not going to work. So maybe something will work on some segment, something will not. Just like, for example, the biggest monetization right now is happening in a country called Brazil, and not in US or Canada. That's one of the recent reports that I also understood.
Wow,
Then,
that's awesome. Why is that?
yes,
I wonder.
I can share you all the list
Yeah,
of
please
those
do.
countries, and I've got it. So you see, isn't it interesting to know?
Yeah.
Not in Canada, not in the US, where there are largest number of podcasts, where it's the home of Spotify's and the Apples and all these places. So that's the way you got to understand this whole industry. But for podcasters themselves, how should they brand themselves?
Yeah.
How should they make themselves discoverable as a celebrity? Sometimes some people start looking at them. It can happen as an influencer, as a content creator, as a YouTuber, because YouTube is also coming into podcasting, where there is video. There's already so much of discussion about video cast and audio cast. So what you are, podcaster, is, if earlier it was considered to be only about audio.
Yeah.
So how should you brand yourself? How should you be the best way to be discoverable as, or merely as a podcaster, podcast host, podcast guest?
Yeah, the branding.
How do you look at it from the place that you are at?
Yeah, the branding is in the action. By the way, I'm going to say that. Like it's not. One thing to point out is that you don't have control over your brand, right? You can control your actions, but really a brand is the public awareness, a public perception of you. So there are pieces that you can put out there to impact the perception of your brand. Some of those are, like we discussed earlier, awards. Some of them are collaborations, right? Especially here on LinkedIn. Some of the ways that we build authority is by, like, this conversation is an awesome example of two people leveraging our authority to create a space to continue to share information back and forth. And it's very reciprocal, and it's very well received. Thank you very much, AJ. So part of it is knowing how you want to act. Part of it is knowing how you want to act and what your goal is, so that when new opportunities come your way, you can stand out. For example, today is November 8th. And on this day, Pinterest TV officially launches. It will forever change Pinterest, the platform that we know it as, which already has an awesome reputation for being an amazing search engine for visual content. Imagine what's going to happen now with the power of video on Pinterest. And you might say, well, how do I use that to stand out? Pinterest is vertical, long form, shoppable, tappable content. So if you're giving out advice and you have tools or you have ways to help people connect them to success, maybe you would start dropping in the information. You understand that now, like the future of viewing live content is more engaging than viewing. If we want to view content, we put our phones down and we can kind of watch it on a bigger screen or a smaller screen, but we put our phones down on a handle or some weird suction cup to the window. But for us as people, the opportunity for us to make an impact in brand, this is like a weird analogy, but I sort of see it this way. It's like when I'm at the Jersey in the shores of the beach of New Jersey, and I got my little boogie board. I'm like 12-year-old Vinnie, and I see all these athletes that are getting the waves. They're hitting the waves. They're coming right back to the beach, and I'm just not getting the waves. The last thing I'm going to do is try to swim ahead to get a wave that passed me. What I'm going to do is put my feet firm in that sand if I can stand, and wait for mine. And I'm going to be prepared for when my wave comes. I'm going to look into the distance to see what I think is going to set me up for the most success. And I'm going to shoot my shot and I'm going to take mine. And I'm going to realize that like my opportunity was my opportunity. And there's a reason why now was my time. And now was not the reason. And now is not the time for other people to take their journey. And we have a lot of control over that. We have a lot of control over being discovered because we have a lot of control over our presence more so than ever. You know, if we want to be seen as early adopters, all we have to do is stay active on new platforms long enough so that when the masses come over and see us, they see that we are there long enough. If you don't stay there long enough, then people won't know you were there early and you won't be seen as an early adopter. These are little tiny things that help you give the impression of, you know, being maybe frontline or being in the know of like what's coming. For me, I'm obsessed with knowing new ways to connect, new ways to communicate, and new ways to perform, not to say perform, but new ways to utilize talent. That's what I love. So of course, social audio, podcast, all of that, you know, it feeds into what I love most about working with creative people. And I want to say that when I say like, find your footing and stand firm, you know, where you want to be discovered. If you don't want to be seen as a legal podcaster, but want to be seen as a lawyer who has a podcast, then when you are, then maybe I would focus on legal conventions that have podcasting elements to them as opposed to podcasting conventions that have legal elements in them. And I think that some of those ways that you set yourself up, some of those ways that you collaborate and connect with people that are of that community help exemplify what that brand really stands for.
Right. Now, Vinnie, we talked about being discoverable, and we talked about how to be discovered. But how do people discover you best? Where are you? How do they connect with you so that they can get the best out of all the resources that you put out, and also engage with you professionally and make the best out of what they are doing?
Oh, AJ, you're the best. Let's say it this way, right? Because these conversations can last forever, and who knows what my address is going to be. I would say this podcast is distributed everywhere after we've done on social media.
Of course, right. From Instagram to Twitter to all the podcast directories to anyone you think of, and maybe a couple of other places.
All right, so here's the plan. Here's the strategy, y'all listening to this. Here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to go to those podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, I'd like this to be the episode that pushes you over and finally gives AJ his 5-star review. By the way, like AJ, I will be giving you a 5-star review today, and I will be commenting, and I can't wait to see who else, because I will be looking at the date. I can't wait to see who else contributes to this energy. My contact information and all that's in the podcast notes. If you want to find me, go to the podcast notes. And while you're looking for that information, please follow this podcast, like, subscribe, give it a very warm and generous 5-star review, and support AJ so that we can continue having these conversations. And that's where I'd like to leave it. Is that fair? Is that fair enough to say?
Okay. Thank you very much for that kind gesture, Vinnie. But I will then make it easy for them and put all your information on the YouTube description, and that will obviously go to other places as well.
I
So
love
if they
that.
come to
You
this
make it
place,
easy.
they will get it.
You make it
Yes, they will.
easy, and I'll make it a little creative challenge. You know, like if you really want it. And let me say this: I am so happy to talk to people. I love. There's almost no message that ever. I don't want to say leaves unresponded, but most of them I respond to pretty quickly. And please, it's an open door. Use it.
Right, right. Wonderful, Vinny. And now, one more last question is: see, you have achieved a lot, even the Emmy you have got, and now you are giving to everybody.
Yeah.
But for yourself, where do you want to go from here, from where you are right now?
Oh yeah.
What's the next place? Where do you want to just go?
Yeah, I'm in that journey. I'm in that journey. I'm in flow right now. I feel like, to be honest. So I appreciate the conversation. Look, I think my journey is cyclical. I think that I figured out my path, and I think I figured out how my path changes every year. And I give myself the grace to know that I've got a year to get through my path. And I found ways, mile markers, tent poles, to make sure that I'm growing, to make sure that my vocabulary is growing, to make sure that my awareness is growing. So where do I want to go? I'm happy to go where the story leads me. I'm really good at getting lost, and I'm amazing at coming back with valuable information learned and in context. But I'd say that where I go next is up to us, and I say that being one of us who's putting energy out there in a way that I hope is making people feel closer connected to success as a creator, as a creative, than I don't know, than the solo. It could be creating can be very lonely. Creating can be very emotional. Creating can be very filled with anxiety. There's it's an emotional process. All of those things are true, and it's just about knowing how to manage them. I think that matters, and I'm here to help you be sustainable and have a long, successful creative career. That's the thing that I think I stand out in doing more so than just helping people build brands. But I've been doing it for 25 years, and the brands that I've helped build are still pillars in the sky, so to speak. So I couldn't be prouder. I'll say it that way for sure.
Wonderful, wonderful. After your words, I am short of adding anything. I have nothing to add. So, on this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass with Vinnie Potestivo, our master for today. Thank you so much, Vinnie, for coming on to this show.
Thank you.